Good afternoon, everyone. The elephant in the sun. Electromagnetic effects on our planet. Suddenly, eruptions underwater. The perspective that it should be presented in the news, but they make it look like this. Oh, it's not that big, actually. And if it is the pipeline, what caused the break? Massive mud flood, overtopping dams, Japan. The state of agriculture in Brazil. Shortages inbound. Third consecutive day, rare snows, record-breaking cold, 25 degrees Fahrenheit in a tropical nation. Just at the same time, Argentina hands over the river control to the port administrator. Not our fault if your rates go up and the dredging halts. Blame that private entity. Because this river network is a lifeline as swing producers for the entire planet. Colonial Pipeline just paid that ransom of $5 million after 5,500 miles of systems were shut down by hackers. This is another reason that you're seeing your gas prices increase recently. If these megacorporations' IT systems can be so incredibly vulnerable because anything or anybody connected to the internet is now a target, nobody should be online without a VPN. Time to disguise your traffic. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox. And click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green, and you'll see how from my initial service provider I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. Take advantage of their free 30-day trial with an extended 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to virtualshield.com/adapt2030 or visit the link below to get 30% off for the next 24 hours. And a beautiful image sent to me through social media. The elephant in the sun. The Earth, that little tiny dot over there. People would have you believe that the big yellow elephant in the sun has no effect on our Earth, although we're just the third planet away from it. Electromagnetic connections? I do believe so. You could say the sun has nothing to do with climate change, but I could also say, Norsker, thanks for the image. It's all about perception. Elephant in the room, elephant in the sun. Wide-angle view of supposedly a break in a gas pipeline from an oil rig, but the close-up paints an entirely different picture. And when you really zoom into this underwater fire/ignition event, I'm not sure how the mechanics work of a gas burning underwater, but something significant is happening. And, looking at the magnetic field changes, the infrastructure is going to start rifting and shifting and breaking. The narrative already built into this is what you're seeing. Oh, there's supply chain shortages here, there, and everywhere. Well, maybe that's the excuse given because those in the know already have a forecast timeline of when critical infrastructure will start to shatter to affect our lives. And you're telling me that a Miami collapsing condo and just a few hundred miles away that this thing erupts and breaks underwater? And there's no correlation of Earth rifting at all in either of these events. Over to Japan, massive mudslide, it should be called a mud flood, hits Atami. Record-breaking rains, and I want you to watch the video, which I've linked below in the description box. You're going to watch it several times because what you see is going to reset the way you think at how quickly cities can disappear or buildings can be buried floors deep, and what's talked about in mud flood resets can occur. These three images here just happen within a flash of a second. The mud's seen and then it's completely through, washing away buildings. It settles out and there's dozens of feet of mud covering everything. And more landslides would be another indication of crustal anomalies from magnetic effects. Now, jumping down to South America here, Brazil, I've been covering this story for the last couple days. In the Piranha region, they're getting some massive crop losses due to freeze and incredible anomalous cold. You know, you see this image of a frozen corn ear and you're like, okay. And you look at the maps and you see the record cold that's across the region, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius below normal. But, you know, don't talk about this. Only focus on the Pacific Northwest. Forget the equivalent below normal temperatures in the cold side all over South America, destroying crops. The thing about it is this is the swing producing continent. As we're already losing so much grain production in the northern hemisphere at 45 degrees north and above, you got the droughts, record cold, and all these floods happening everywhere. China releasing mega amounts of water again in the same areas. They're going to lose an enormous amount of production. So all eyes are on South America, specifically Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, to fill in a lot of that gap in production. Yet, I'm looking at frozen corn crops here that are damaged, but nobody knows how deeply yet and how much this is going to affect the yield. But when you have standing ice on the leaves, that is a huge problem. This is the first time it's been seen at this level. So even chasing down some of the news articles here, Santa Catarina, the third consecutive day of rare snow and sub-zero cold, so much so that the government is issuing warnings saying we've never seen anything like this. It is in the southernmost state of Brazil, so the further you go south in Brazil, the cooler it gets versus heading up toward the equator. But these sub-zero temperatures are so far off the charts, as it is in Oregon and Washington, where it's 116 degrees, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, to go to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, or 3 or 4 degrees Celsius below zero, 25 Fahrenheit, down here is the exact equivalent of what that would be in a heat event. Yet mainstream media doesn't want to cover this. And some areas have set all-time record cold 18.5 degrees Fahrenheit in a crop grow zone when the crops are still maturing. That is a solid piece of ice at this point. The stalks are going to thaw. They're going to break. So what is the possibility of getting that out of the field? There's going to be some massive crop losses, whether it be soy or the corn. You're looking at this snow, which is so rare. You're not hearing about it anywhere out in our mainstream media in the Northern Hemisphere now, are you? Focused on the heat, 3 or 4 places. Oh, by the way, that heat wave's gone. It's dissipating. This should also be front page news. But the reason I would bring that up is at the exact same time, same days this cold event is happening, it's going to destroy crops. The government of Argentina hands over control of the Paraguay River Network, which is the largest distribution and grain thoroughfare for exports out of South America, over to the General Port Administration of Argentina. This should also be one of the largest stories that is underreported in the news at the moment. So if you're not familiar where this river network is, blue is where you're tracing down. It goes from Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil. They share this network for grain deliveries. So what the government has done and says, all right, well, we're no longer to blame if anything goes wrong or if prices increase. It's now in the AGP's hands, and they're going to be collecting the tolls by bulk carriers using these waterways. Also included in this responsibility is dredging and keeping the waterways open. But wait a second. The record drought has created so many sandbars that how many? 80? Now barges are stuck until the next rainy season. And that number should continue to rise as captains that have decided not to move their vessels because they're in deeper water and said, hey, we're going to get stuck down the river. They're locked in just as much as that vessel stuck on the sandbar because they can't transit, they can't move until there's more dredging going on. Also interesting to notice, the grain exporters chamber is like, whoa, hold on a second. These tolls collected by the state are going to get fully put back into the treasury of the country, but that's going to be diluted into other programs, and the full amount of that running capital expense for maintenance, repair, dredging, etc. in the rivers is not going to be there any longer. So this could, quote unquote, result in higher tolls for exporters. Higher tariffs mean lower exports. So I'm thinking to myself, sitting back here on the armchair going, wait, if I was going to reduce exports, but I didn't want to tell the world that I was going to reduce exports, how would I do it? The playbook is right here in front of you. South America's now in the process of reducing all of their grain exports. It's just going to be in a no, they said way. And by the time the culpability is figured out, famine will have swept our planet. Hence, the elephant in the sun, nobody wants to talk about electromagnetic effects changing the jet streams in our food production and the famines that follow every 400 years. Which is why food's going to be a main priority of all of ours moving forward. Whether you grow it, you should learn how to store it, save the seeds, work with your communities. Get familiar with crops to grow and which ones have the most nutritional value. Carbohydrates, proteins, micronutrients, all of it. You need to understand all of it. But in the interim, if you want to have some storable foods, give yourself the peace of mind that you do have food at your home. Mylar bags, storable for 20 years. My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030, the 2-week or the 4-week emergency food supply. And My Patriot Supply also has 1 month, 6 month, and 1 year food supplies. That link's in the description box below. Check out what they have for preparedness. And I'm going to say grand solar minimum preparedness to keep you and your family safe during transition times. The links to all of tonight's stories and images, I hope you do your own research on that. Don't believe what I say. You have to follow the links to do your own research. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.